We're here with two Republican candidates for the 30th District in the Florida House of Representatives. We appreciate you coming in today. We'll begin this meeting, as we begin all of our meetings, with a couple of questions that we ask all candidates. The first question, Mr. Cortes, we'll start with you. Have you been arrested before?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sturgill?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Cortes, have you declared bankruptcy before?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sturgill?
Yes, I filed a Chapter 13 filing. We were going through a home modification, and once it was done, the mediation was done, we withdrew the filing at that point.
Like a mortgage modification?
It's a mortgage modification on our primary residence.
Okay.
That was the only thing involved in it.
Well, one of the reasons why we ask candidates that question is it may raise questions for some voters on if you're going to be in a position of managing public funds. So what would you say to voters who might question that in terms of your qualifications to be managing their money as taxpayers?
Sure. My wife and I bought at the height of the markets, like probably 80% of the population, and we were underwater at the time. We attempted 4 workout solutions with our mortgage holder to no avail. The mortgage company was being untruthful and dishonest in their own practices. And so after 18 months of trying to work through them, we engaged our attorneys at that point, and they presented us with this option to go into court-ordered mediation. And we went through the mediation. Again, within 4 months, we were able to withdraw the petition because we had reached a modification agreement at that time. So, you know, is it a blemish? Absolutely it is. But did we do what we thought was in the best interest after trying to, faithfully work with our mortgage company? Yeah, we did. So I went under the advice of counsel at that point. Mm-hmm. So I can tell you I run a very successful company. So I think the voters can be fairly assured that we've been through what, again, 80% of the population has gone through as well.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Cortes, why are you seeking this office?
Sure. It's seeking this office as a continuation of my public service. I started off as a homeowners association president back in 2007, and one of the reasons I got involved in that was one of those situations where we were seeing the community was starting to deteriorate as far as the management that was there, and they wanted to send it to a private management company. I either can stand around and not do anything or roll up my sleeves. I rolled up my sleeves, became involved, and became the homeowners president. Several years later, we started seeing what was happening with the economy, that it was starting to drop, and cities with lower revenues, they were putting the burdens on small businesses, and we were not the exception, we were the norm. Again, seeing what was happening, I decided to step up and run for city commission, bringing a business mentality to the board. I had never been in politics before, so I did it, and I ran, and I won, and did exactly what I said I was going to do and have been. And now in the State House is just a continuation of everything else, now at a broader level, to be able to expand what I've done in the public service all the way up to the state level, with my experience and knowledge as far as business, government, and everything else.
And that's the Longwood City Commission?
Longwood City Commission, correct.
Yeah, in 2010?
2009.
2009.
Was when I first elected, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sturgill, how about you? Why are you running for this office?
Sure. I'm at 34 years old. I'm on my second company now. I was fortunate to sell my first company at age 30. And I'm a lifelong Seminole County resident. I'm a lifelong Republican. My family's been in Seminole County now for 4 generations. My kids are now the 5th generation. As a business owner, I've watched politicians walk into my office every 2 years looking for a campaign contribution. And I'd always ask them, hey, so what have you guys done to make the small business owner have a better life? or easing regulations, there was really never a clear answer of what they could do. And so finally, after talking it over with my family and especially with my wife and my business partners, I decided to make a run at the State House to bring my experience of creating 2 successful companies for the benefit of the citizens of Seminole County and Orange County. I want people in the state legislature who understand what it's like to sign the front of more paychecks than the back of paychecks. I want people to understand that not everything is always Republican and Democrat. There has got to be compromise if we're going to set the course for Florida for the next 25 to 30 years. I want long-range planning for Florida and address issues that may not be major issues now, but they will be issues here in the next few years. Let's go ahead and address them now and solve those problems. That way, we're not having to make rash decisions or rash regulations or laws. So again, business experience is what I want, and I want people who have compassion and will look at every angle of an issue.
Could you just elaborate on the 2 companies?
Sure. My first company that I was a partner in was a company called Safety Gear USA, and my current company is a company called Durable Safety Products. And we manufacture reflective traffic clothing and traffic safety devices that are then sold through distribution partners in all 50 states.
Okay.
Well, you've talked about a lot of issues, Mr. Sturgill. Could you tell us what you see as the top 3 issues facing the state right now, and what are your specific plans to address those issues?
I'm looking at the issues specifically here for the region. The first is the modeling and simulation industry associated with Research Park out here by UCF. Most people don't realize that we have all 4 branches of the military here doing training and simulation to train our troops for the next generation. We have 135 plus support companies that are associated with the modeling and simulation area, and thousands upon thousands of employees. It's a $5 billion economic impact currently occurring out there. Behind tourism, that's the 2nd largest driver for our economy. And if we're not careful, the military is actively being pursued by Huntsville, Alabama, and Norfolk, Virginia, who have a lot of empty space available from government cutbacks. And if they go to one of those locations, these jobs and these companies will go, and so will that economic impact. Florida's recovering right now, but we need to make sure that we keep our jobs here and keep the impact here. While that is not directly in the district, a lot of the people who work there live in the district. So I look at it as a regional impact, not just looking at specific district issues. The second is addressing the shortage of physicians here in the state of Florida. We have approximately 44,800 licensed physicians here in the state. And in the next 10 years, it is projected that 60% of our physicians will either retire or quit practice because of some of our heavy-duty regulations and insurance requirements. We need to go ahead and start petitioning the state and the universities and the hospitals to acquire more residency slots. We also need to look at, again, how can we make it fair for doctors to practice here. We want to make sure that we retain the best physicians here. We have a 19 million person population. We cannot afford not to have too little amount of doctors. And the third is child advocacy issues here in the state of Florida. I'd like to see us improve the child advocacy laws, especially when it comes to adoption and foster care. The laws are 40 years old. They're outdated. They do not pass a common sense test. We need to make sure that we can move the children quicker through the system. It's very easy for the legislature or politicians to blame DCF, but the reality is DCF has been underfunded for many years, and they are following the letter of the law as set by the legislature and the executive branch. So we need to, again, relook at those issues, and while it is controversial to open up a subject like that, if we're not here to pursue worthwhile causes, then we have to ask ourselves, why are we really getting into public service?
On the child advocacy issue, you want to move children quicker through the system. Are we endangering children by hastening their passage through the system and bypassing potential safeguards?
We're not endangering them. The problem is children are so young and vulnerable, and they're going through a lot of growth and development, both mental and physical, at that point. When you have parents who are not doing their jobs as parents or taking their jobs as parents very serious, and you have foster parents or you have adoption parents who really want to adopt the kids, and or they're already living, or the kids are already in their care, as put through DCF. Again, we need to speed up that process. The average time is almost 3 years right now that a kid is in the process, and And a lot of that has to do with the way we change judges over every year on shifting them from their court schedules. But we need to make sure that we are looking out for the best interests of the kids, not just the parents here.
Mr. Cortes, same question. Top 3 challenges facing the state and your solutions for resolving those issues.
Sure. Top 3 challenges facing the state. Of course, out of many, many challenges that we do have, my opinion of top 3 is obviously jobs. Jobs that we can continue to promote and create throughout the state. And that so far we've been successful at doing that, but we need to do more. As population continues to grow and a lot of people are coming to Florida, we have to make sure that we have enough jobs for the area. And part of that has to do with some of the over regulations and burdens that government tends to put on small business owners. The second one, I
Let me
believe.
stop you there. What specific regulations are you talking about? Because we hear these generalities about regulations
Yeah.
all the time. What
Yeah.
specifically is impeding small business here in the state?
I will tell you on the local level, most of the time happens, and then I can tell you one of the reasons I ran for city commission was when you have excessive business tax receipts, or what they call, sometimes I call it you have to have a business license in every county that you do business in, although you're domiciled in one particular county. Those are some of the regulations that impede. Sometimes even something as simple as sign regulations from different cities. Seminole County has 7 different cities, 7 different ordinances, plus the county ordinance with sign regulations. We have to find more uniformity when it comes to that. Permitting, you have a permitting that's in Longwood that's different than Lake Mary, that's different in Altamont, and Orlando and other portions. The contractor finds it so confusing sometimes and spends too much time filling out paperwork. So I think more trying to bridge more the ability to make it more uniform, where somebody who is a small business owner doesn't have to spend that much time in the permitting process and more time doing the work. Those are the regulations I'm talking about.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Can I jump in real quick? You're talking about the business tax receipts, but I believe 205.065 actually addresses that. That was addressed a couple years ago, where you don't have to have multiple business tax receipts, other than where your actual business is domiciled.
That's correct, but however, Palm Beach County has now thrown a new ordinance that is regulating, that is making something as simple as the towing industry pay $3,000 per company to be able to do business inside on top of their business tax receipt, even if you're not domiciled in the county. So those are the type of burdens that are being put.
Not using their skills to be able to teach. They feel like their hands are tied, they're hampered. They're basically teaching to a test currently right now. We need to keep education on a local level. We need to make sure that we're electing good school board members and and hiring good superintendents who are going to direct the education levels. Trying to implement a national standard is not good. It's not going to work. Most things on the national standard do not work. So I'm in favor of, again, leaving the control with our local school boards, because if we're going to go to a national standard, then really we can save the taxpayers some money by getting rid of a lot of the administrative staff at the school boards at that point.
Well, what's your position on accountability in schools? And do you think accountability should be achieved by standardized testing, or is there some other way we should go about it here in Florida?
No, it should be achieved by first bringing in and talking to teachers and people who are in that field. Both Bob and I, neither one of our businesses are in the educational field. So for us to look like experts or talk like experts is not realistic. We need to actually talk to teachers and find out, all right, how would you guys grade yourself? What's a fair way to assess a teacher? Because a teacher who's in for example, an F-rated school, they're not going to have the test scores that jump up high. So you can't really rate them based on the rating of the school, because they could be working their butts off. But the reality is, taking a school from, let's say if it's at an F and moving it all the way up the ladder is going to take a lot of time. So why should we punish those teachers who are passionate, who are showing up every day, working and putting in the extra time, based on a rating? It needs to be, again, about how do you judge the progress of the kids? How are they making progress every year? So again, but that's going to take talking to the teachers themselves. Obviously, the teachers union has their their thoughts and opinions. But as a business owner, not every decision I make, I can tell you, is always in my best interest. But for me, it's in the best interest of the 43 employees and families that are associated with us and work for us. So again, if we need to know, we need to actually go physically talk to the people and bring them into engage them in the conversation.
That hasn't been customary here in the state, so you might be a lone wolf out there with this.
Well, someone once called me a maverick Republican, which I take as a compliment. But again, I think we need to stop playing politics. We need to stop, thinking everything is a Democrat or Republican issue, and let's bring in people who understand that not everything is a Democrat Republican issue. It's somewhere in the middle, and start crossing party lines, and again, start actually working for the people that we're here to represent, not just parties. I'm not going to Tallahassee to be to do exactly what leadership does. I mean, there's plenty of other people who could do that. That's not me. I'm there to look out for what's in the best interest of the 19 million Floridians, not just the ones with R's behind their names.
Mr. Cortes, can you think of any policy goals that you have or proposals that you would expect to be supported by Democrats if you're elected?
Any policy that would be supported by Democrats? Well, obviously, environmental water policies throughout the state. We do have to make sure that our water quality, and we look for the best type of solutions, not for today, but for our future. Right now, I grew up in Puerto Rico, and this past weekend, Hurricane Tropical Storm Bertha came by, and everybody's worried about the tropical storm hitting, and they were actually welcoming the fact that it was going to bring much needed rain, because in the tropical island like Puerto Rico, they were actually going through a severe drought. And they don't have any solutions if they go through that. I mean, they were pretty much shutting off water. We can go into that type of dangerous situation ourselves here in Florida if we don't prepare ourselves for our basin in the future. And this is a myriad of things, anywhere from the water conservation issues and everything else that we've been addressing to even possibly desalination in the future. Anything that we can do that would promote conservation and the high quality of water, and that we do have water not just for today, for our future. And I think that's something that the Democrats would also agree that is a part of protecting not just our natural resources, but our environment.
Were you disappointed that the legislature did not move very much on water quality in this past session?
Yeah, I think, like I said, you mentioned earlier, what are the top 3 issues? There are many issues that we need to look out and address, and water quality is definitely one of them. And I hope that in the future we can address it. Speaker Crisafulli is getting ready, and that will be probably one of his priorities coming into the future. And I think the Democrats will definitely be embracing of that.
Sorry to step on you, Paul.
That's all right. I'm going to do something that, if you've been watching these interviews, you've seen us do before, and that is just ask some quick questions that I'm looking for yes and no questions on, just so we can get an idea for viewers where you stand and get to a bunch of topics this way. I'll start with Mr. Sturgill, and same question for you, Mr. Cortes, after his answer. Should Florida increase its minimum wage?
No.
No.
Okay. Mr. Cortes, should Florida accept federal funds under the Affordable Care Act to expand health care coverage in the state?
No.
Are you referring to the Medicaid expansion?
Yes. Well, the Medicaid expansion, the Senate had an idea of doing it with private insurance, but it's the money that comes under the Affordable Care Act.
You're talking about the $51 billion?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, we should.
Okay. Mr. Sturgill, should Florida authorize destination casinos?
No.
Mr.
No.
Cortes? Okay. Mr. Cortes, would you be open to more oil drilling in Florida, either on land or in waters controlled by Florida?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Sturgill?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sturgill, would you support a minimum requirement for generating electricity from renewable energy in Florida?
No.
Okay, Mr. Cortes?
No.
Okay. Mr. Cortes, do you support Florida's ban on same-sex marriage?
I do support a yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
I do support it.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you about this. We'll talk a little bit crime and punishment. Are you both familiar with the smart justice movement here in Florida, well, throughout the United States? Do you support those types of initiatives that will reduce the prison population and put more prisoners into the community, making it less expensive for taxpayers? And I'll start with Mr. Cortes.
Sure. Smart justice is I do support it. Let me start with that, saying that, and I'll tell you why. I do support it. However, I do want it to change some of the portions of smart justice that reduce recidivism. The part of having somebody have a reduced sentence, and depends on the minimum sentencing guidelines, to have a sentencing of 18 months that doesn't serve any time or minimal time, usually a third of that or more, you end up going right back into jail or doing something. So it is huge. You have over 100,000 inmates in the state of Florida, and it's 3% of our state budget. Goes back to some of the things that we can look in our budget to reduce. $2.5 billion is one thing right there. So we need to look for ways to work with that. Smart justice is a great start. I think it needs more coming of the minds to make it even better. My only concern that I do have is the recurrence of going back. If you have somebody that's been arrested for drugs and for some reason he did not serve any jail time, he kind of didn't learn his lesson, within 6 months or a year, he's right back in the same spot. And that's my concern with the smart justice, and I'd like to see that addressed. But other than that, I do support it.
Mr. Sturgill.
Sure, I do support it. Here in Orlando, we actually have a campus called Bridges of America, which is a nonprofit group that works in conjunction with the Department of Corrections. And so they are having great success rate with lowering the recidivism rate of inmates by teaching them a skill, by teaching them allowing them to achieve their, whether it be their cooking certifications for food service, so that they can go out and get a job and already have their certifications, so they can be productive members of society. And as essentially has lowered the recidivism rate extreme amount. I think the average recidivism rate right now is about 60%, and they're down in the 20s. So it's done well. And they've got other locations throughout the state where they are operating. I'd like to see those programs expanded, because it's a lot cheaper to keep an inmate in one of those programs and actually give them the skills so they can go back to being productive members of society.
Where do you stand on felony restoration of rights reform? Since we started with Mr. Cortes before, we'll go back to you.
Okay, you're requiring the felony. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the part.
Yeah, basically the question is, if you're a felon and you get out of jail, should your rights be immediately restored, or should you have to wait a period of time before you have all of your full rights as a citizen?
Right. You should have to wait, and you should have to work your path to restore your rights if it's felony. And you have different types of felony. You have your simple first degree or second degree. I mean, your second degree type of felonies all the way to the major crimes. I do believe that you should, if you're looking for any type of restoration, it should be a process that would take you to there. It should just not be granted immediately you come out.
Do you have a waiting period in mind?
It depends on, like I said, on the crime again. I think it should be a policy in the process that is clearly defined to achieve that, and depending on the type of incidence of the crime. I mean, if you're talking murder, you're all the way to the top. That's the ultimate. So I wouldn't say that there is a specific time. It would be depending on the circumstance.
Okay. Mr. Sturgill.
Sure, I think I agree. It depends on the actual crime that was committed and to what level. But I would be okay with setting a benchmark of, say, 10 years. Maybe after they've completed their sentence and they've repaid, if there's restitution to be repaid, and they've done all that, and they've been behaved themselves, I would have okay with, after a period of 10 years, allowing them to petition to have their rights restored at that point.
Mr. Sturgill, do you think any changes need to be made in Florida's stand your ground law?
No, I think that law has been tested pretty well. And so I think the law stands on its own merits. I think too many people try to claim stand your ground, but as we have just seen with the warning shot bill that was approved this year, to where if someone feels like they are threatened, they can fire a warning shot to try to make their way to retreat at that point. I think it's a good law. I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment rights, and I've actually received an A rating from the NRA and pro-gun status from the Unified Sportsmen of Florida.
You mentioned the warning shot bill. Had you been a member of the the legislation here, would you have voted for that bill?
The warning shot bill?
The warning shot bill.
Yes, I would have voted for that bill.
Even though it potentially jeopardizes people because of errant shots and creating a different problem.
I think the possibility of an errant shot, and obviously I know we've had it happen here where someone gets accidentally shot. It's the percentage is so minute, but the amount of people who fear for their lives every day or in a bad situation, if they can fire a warning shot to be able to retreat, I think it's worth the risk.
And did you get a chance to talk about stand your ground?
No.
Mr. Cortes?
Okay. My turn?
Yes.
Okay. Stand your ground. I totally support it the way it is. I don't support any change. It has been, I know Senator Simmons was trying to more clarify some of the wording, so it's procedural matter type of thing, to clarify, especially for police agencies, to when to try to implement or see whether it was a stand your ground case or not. But as far as on the merits of the actual law, no, I wouldn't change a thing out of it.
Mr. Cortes, how would you rate Governor Scott's performance?
Governor Scott came in here in a time when I was starting in 2009, the economy was going down and it was really tough. Budget was bad, and he had to make some really tough decisions. He came here with a business mentality, and me knowing, obviously, to try to come with a business mentality and into the public sector, normally sometimes that does not work. Your government does not work as fast as you can in the business world. In the business world, you want to buy a piece of equipment, you can order it the next day and pay for it. In the public sector, you have to go through RFQs and all the other. Sometimes it can take 6 months for a year. So Governor Scott came in here with the business mentality, private sector coming into public, and soon realized probably it was not like the business. However, he did have to make some tough decisions, which we're starting to see now are beneficial. We have turned around the economy. He's turned around the economy. He's helped create a lot of jobs throughout the state, and Florida is flourishing. I know right now the latest numbers on tourism were great for this first quarter. 27 million new tourists came. Last year we had over 100 million tourists coming here to Florida. Those are great news, and those are good numbers, and I think it shows the leadership that he's brought to the state.
Okay, Mr. Sturgill.
Sure. Yeah, the governor's done a good job. He came out with his $700,000 or 700,000 jobs plan when he initially ran, and I believe he's just under that currently. So he's pretty close. He's eliminated 3,000 plus regulations, which is good for Florida. He's attracting a lot of good businesses. So I think he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, is it an easy job to be? Absolutely, it's not an easy job for anyone. I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican. Anytime you're having to work with two legislative bodies, that's not an easy job. But yeah, he's done a very well job.
I wanted to give you, Mr. Sturgill, a chance to respond to the question about any areas of state government that you would cut.
Sure. Yeah, one of the areas that is the Department of Economic Opportunity. Their job is certainly to attract businesses, but also to make sure that businesses are living up to the deals as far as the incentives that they receive. Now, as business owners, we belong to chambers of commerce, and chambers of commerce, are supposed to be responsible for attracting companies and showing why our area is better than another area. Here in Orlando, we have almost 250 employees working for the Department of Economic Opportunity with a budget well over $40 million. Unfortunately, most of the companies who receive incentives do not live up to the deals. So is it an agency that we could probably scale back and rely more on our chambers of commerce to utilize their assets? Probably. But my guess is there's a lot of different agencies, and once we get into the legislature, we'll start to dig through everything and find out again where we can cut, and who can defend why they need to be there versus costing taxpayers money.
Well, from your answer, it sounds like you would not be in favor of expanding incentives to draw business to Florida.
I'm not in favor of giving them the incentives all at one time. I'm a big proponent of letting them earn those incentives. So as they create a job, you release, in most cases, those tax credits. Don't give it to them all at once, because we've seen too many times where the citizens and the taxpayers of Florida have gotten burned by those companies. Sometimes it's just been pure economic, standpoint where the companies just couldn't survive after they made the turn, and sometimes they just didn't live up to their deals. For instance, Niagara bottling water, they made a deal with the citizens of Florida for a 500,000 gallon a day permit, and they're supposed to create 200 jobs. Problem is, they created 120 jobs, and then they petitioned the St. Johns River Water Management for an additional 450,000 gallons a day permit, which I believe is the number. But again, why should we reward a company who didn't live up to their deal in the first place? We should have made them bring up the number of jobs they agreed to, and then consider their application at that point.
Mr. Cortes, where do you stand on incentives?
On incentives, in Longwood, when I first started, I did promote, for as part of economic development, we did promote and bring a charter amendment that was passed in 2012 to offer incentives to businesses that would create jobs, that would create high-paying jobs. We have that program currently in Longwood. That program only pays after the fact, after the jobs have actually, the people have relocated, and they've established the goals that we set up, and then it sunsets. So it can only be for X amount of time, and it's a form of either tax break, either through tangible or real estate, the ad valorem. So I do support it as long as it's used responsibly and it's used for the intended purpose that is. Do we need to spend more money on statewide to attract? I think with what we've got, we can do well. Example, Florida's surrounded by water, and a lot of jobs can be created and will be created by our port systems. We have so many ports. Port Canaveral is one that is an excellent example of being expanded that would create more opportunities with cruises. We have the Port of Jacksonville that has a direct tie with Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, and then we have Miami with South America, especially Brazil. So there is a great opportunity to do so, and these are one of the things that I believe that the incentives would work.
I think this will be our last question. Mr. Sturgill, voters will be making a choice in this primary. So what would you tell them is the strongest reason to pick you over your opponent in this race?
Sure. Yeah. We're both businessmen. I like Bob personally. He's a very, very nice guy. We just have different philosophies on where, and what we can do for our districts. To me, I look at the district as a regional impact. I'm not here to play political games with the voters. I'm here to earn their trust. I'm here to work for every voter each and every day, no matter what their party affiliation is. We have a clear plan of what we're going to do here for the area, the modeling and simulation area, child advocacy, and with shortage of physicians. We have a clear plan. We're very involved in our community. We're not just involved because it's a political season. But for myself and my family, volunteering is a way of life. We not only give financially to charities, but we also donate our time and service. Again, my family is a 4th generation Seminole County residents, and again, my kids are 5th generation. We care very much deeply about this community. We could relocate anywhere in the country, but we've chosen to maintain Seminole County as our home. And for me, politics is not a career. This is not a career. I have a career, and my company will have no benefit from me being an elected official. We don't do any business with any city county, state, or federal governments. So if they want someone who's going to go to work for them each and every day, I'm their guy, and I'm always accessible.
Okay. And Mr. Cortes?
Sure. Lifetime of experience, and that's the first thing that I have to offer to the voters of this district that are looking for a representative that will represent them in the House of Representatives. I've grown up in different backgrounds, being born in New York, raised in Puerto Rico, living in South Carolina, being the parent of a handicapped child who was given less than a year to live and passed away at the age of 5, going through the struggles of raising a child that had severe cerebral palsy, and persevering as a parent, and then raising 2 other children to the Seminole County school system successfully. And my children grew up and graduated and went on to form their own families, with my son in the military and my daughter married to a captain in the Air Force. And then successfully having a business, starting a business when I was 26, and sticking to that business for 25 plus years now, what I still do, and work for a living, and creating the opportunities for not just myself, all my employees for that, and being a very successful business throughout the years, and not just having the business, getting involved with the industry itself to make sure that we create common sense laws that are in protection of consumers, which I was fortunate to be able to pass throughout the years in my involvement. And then having all that, and also getting involved with the local government myself. So you have a businessman that's been a family man that also got involved in local government, that understands what it is to have a budget. As, for example, City of Longwood's a $30 million budget. The state's going to be $77 billion, but it still has the meat and potatoes of what is needed and what is just wanted, and that can be taken out. So the part of it is, at the end of the day, is public service. I got into the city commission because of public service, and I'm getting into the state house, if I get elected, as part of the continuing public service. I've done a lot of things in my life, and I just turned just last year 50 years old. I'm a grandfather of 2 beautiful grandchildren, and I wish I had them here to bump them off my knee, but unfortunately they're in Little Rock, Arkansas. So what do? I spend my time continuing on my businesses, by the way I have 2, and then the public service of serving in the public capacity. It's not something that I need to do as far as financially or professionally. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I quit smoking over 10 years ago. I do it because it is my desire to serve and leave this world better than when it came. So I also did buy into a house that I paid too much money for. It was a rental house that I wanted to have my in-laws living in there, and I bought it at the height, and I paid too much. I didn't go into bankrupt to continue paying it. I still have it, and I never asked for a modification. It's the contract I did with the lender when I bought it. I knew what I was buying. I paid for it the way it is, and I continue to pay for it. Is it worth the money that I paid for it? Absolutely not. Will I surrender anything or ask for anything less? No. I knew what I was buying, and I'll continue. So at the end of the day, I think I would be the best person that the voters of this district should vote for.
Thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you.